Okay, well, welcome back. So the last couple days I've been really just thinking about things and asking the Lord, for another subject or video I can make, and I hear Him ask me, "What was your first sin against God, Dan? What was your first sin against God?" Hmm. And I got to thinking, like, wow, that's an interesting question. So, did you know that the Bible tells you what your very first sin against God was? Yeah, the Bible tells us. As a matter of fact, Jesus himself teaches you what your very first sin was. Your very first sin. And it only take about 10 minutes for you to learn this. So, pay attention, okay? So, all right. So, according to God's word, all right, your main mission in life before you die, above everything else, above your job, above your career, above your education, above all your toys and possessions, above your video games, above your passions and hobbies, above politics. Your main mission is in life is to learn the truth about your own personal story in the Bible. Learn why you decided to commit your very first sin against God. Every Christian church or pastor, preacher, or website I've seen always say, we are all the Jesus's prodigals. Jesus wants his prodigals to return home to him. So come home to Jesus. And that I do agree with. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly read over the beginning of the parable of the prodigal, and we'll see what Jesus teaches. And after that, we're going to come back to my notes here, and we're going to think about this parable on a much deeper level about your original sin, your first sin against God. Okay? So, are you with me? All right. So, let's go to the beginning of the parable of the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15. And this is Jesus speaking. Jesus says, "A certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. Give me my inheritance now, I want it. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living." All right, so I know this word prodigal is kind of a strange word, so we need to understand the definition of prodigal. And I got the dictionary pulled up, and here's the word prodigal, and we know that it's being used as a noun. And look what it says right here: one who leaves home but later makes a repentant return home. Well, that makes perfect sense because you can't make a repentant return home if you didn't leave home in the first place, right? And just for an example, here is Dr. James Dobson, Family Institute. And he says right here on this page about the prodigal son, says we are all prodigals. Not some of us, no, not half of us, not a few of us or most of us. He says all. We are all prodigals. And he says down here in his little thing down here, he says Jesus's parable of the prodigal son is more than just a story in the Bible. It is our story. So that means it's my story, it's your story, and it's also Dr. James Dobson's story. And the beginning of this parable paints the picture pretty good. This, if the son comes up to the father and says, "Give me all my stuff, I want to leave," and the father says, "Okay, here you go," or daughter, and you left. Okay, you gathered all your stuff together and took your journey into a far country. So here we go. We're going to think about this on a much deeper level. Okay, so Jesus said, the younger of them said to his father, well, you are the younger of them. That's you. Jesus is telling you your story and what you did. You said to your father, "Give me the portion of goods that falleth to me." This is not a peaceful statement. This is you voluntarily turning against your father and making him your enemy right there. So, what could your father do about this? Is there anything he could do about this? No. So, all he could do was just give you all your stuff. So it says, not many days after, you gathered all your stuff together and took your journey into a far country. And there you're wasting your substance with riotous, sinful living. So, what is this then? This is you voluntarily separating yourself from your father. And you became a sinner in a faraway country called Earth and did lots of sins in your father's sight. So you voluntarily are separated yourself from your father. So let's see what the prodigal son says when he makes his repentant return home. In the story, he spends all his money, everybody deserts him, and there's a famine, and he's starving, and he's got no food or shelter or money anymore, and he regrets leaving. So he comes back to the father in Luke 15, verse 21, and he says, and the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and I am no more worthy to be called thy son. All right, so let's break this apology down to the nitty gritty. Let's break it down. Get a screenshot of this so you remember. So the son said unto him, Father, right there, I have sinned against heaven. So there you go. I have sinned against heaven. That's the first thing he says to his father. I've sinned against heaven right there. So here you are. You were with your father. You were in heaven with your father right there. And you asked for all your stuff. You asked for your inheritance and you're waving goodbye. You're leaving. Bye. I'm leaving now. So Jesus teaches your very first sin against God. You revolted against your father and leaving his home in heaven. Okay? So you left his home in heaven. And this is why the prodigal son said, I have sinned against heaven, because he knew it was his own fault for separating himself from heaven and his father. So where are you now? Okay, where are you now? Well, you're over here in the faraway country. Okay, you used to be over here, but then you left and you came over here, and you're over here in earth, wasting your substance with riotous living. And that's why this earth is so full of evil, because you were unable to do all the sins in your father's kingdom. You can't do the sins in heaven. You had to go somewhere else to become a sinner. And so that's why this world is so full of evil. That's why it's so full of evil, because we all left heaven to go be evil sinners. Hashtag prodigals. So there you go. That's what Jesus is trying to teach you. That's why he says, I have sinned against heaven and I have sinned in thy sight and am no more worthy to be called thy son. So all the sins in your father's sight that you did here in the faraway country called Earth. There you go. Did you get that screenshot? There it is. Get that screenshot. There's your very first sin against God. That's it right there. So what type of apology did the son say to his father? What type of apology? Well, this is a wholehearted, a personal, genuine apology that admits full responsibility. That's what this apology is and does. And his father forgives him because he admitted full responsibility for his decisions. Of course, his father forgives him. Your father will forgive you too, but you have to admit your personal guilt. You have to acknowledge your revolt against your father, and you have to understand that you left his home in heaven. That was your sin against heaven. So let's see what the prodigal son does not say in his apology. What does the prodigal son not say? Oh, Father, I just inherited my separation from you. I just inherited my sinful nature. It was all just passed down to me. And it was all because of that dude named Adam. So I'm looking at his apology right here. It starts with the word father. Do you see the word inherited anywhere in there? Inherited or because of Adam? Nah, I don't see it. It's not there. There's no inherited separation. There was no inherited sinful nature. Does Jesus say that you inherited all that? Mm, no, not at all. Jesus doesn't say that at all. Jesus clearly teaches you that you bear the blame for your voluntary separation from your Father. So I got a question for you now. Why do all of Satan's ministers, the pastors and preachers and scholars and websites you could possibly read, why do Satan's ministers lie to you and say that you inherited all that? Not only do they say it, they insist that you inherited it. Why do they lie to you? It's a good question, isn't it? Satan's ministers, they will actually teach you to deny Jesus' own words. Yes, they will. Because if you go to a different part of the Bible, like Satan's ministers will do right now, and they will say, but Dan, it says something different over here. Then you are misinterpreting what it says over here, and you are denying Jesus' own words. Jesus does not contradict his own word. He's not going to do that. I don't go try to argue with Jesus. I don't try to prove Jesus wrong. I believe Jesus is teaching because Jesus does not lie, and his whole book does not lie. So here's what Satan's ministers teach. Yeah, we're going to do this again. Satan's ministers teach the opposite of what Jesus teaches. Satan's ministers teach that you inherited your separation. Satan's ministers teach you inherited your sinful nature. They sure do. They teach it. See, this is what they teach you to do. You see Adam in the middle here? We got all these people just pointing their finger at Adam. Oh, that was Adam's fault. Adam, because Adam disobeyed God. Oh, yeah, that was Adam's fault. So you inherited your separation. You inherited your sinful nature because of this dude named Adam. Yeah, that's what Satan's ministers teach. So let's compare Jesus' teaching versus Satan's teaching. Let's do a quick comparison and understand the difference. So Jesus' goal is for you to be born again so you can enter into the kingdom of heaven. That's Jesus' goal. This is why Jesus teaches that you bear the blame for your voluntary separation from God and your voluntary sinful nature. And he teaches you your very first sin against God. And when you admit your guilt, just like the prodigal son did, he will be happy to forgive you. Just like I've done. I've admitted my guilt. Dear Lord, I have sinned against heaven by leaving your home. I revolted and I left. And I've done so much evil in this sinful world, in my flesh. I please forgive me, Lord. I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Please forgive me. And boom, there it is. Okay? I'm forgiven. So, how about Satan? Satan knows that if you believe Satan's teaching, you cannot be born again. This is why Satan's ministers teach you this, that you do not bear the blame. You just inherited your separation from God, huh? You just inherited your sinful nature, huh? Yeah. Satan teaches you not to admit your own guilt, and therefore you will not be forgiven, no matter how much you think you are. So, can you perceive the difference between Jesus' teaching and Satan's teaching? Can you perceive the difference? Admit your guilt. Jesus teaches you to admit personal responsibility. Satan teaches you to reject personal responsibility. Take that screenshot right there, too. Take that screenshot. I'll give you a second. Yeah. Don't listen to that dude named Jesus over there. Don't listen to him. Listen to me. I know better. Yeah, don't listen to Jesus. So if this has captured your attention in a way that you must learn more, like maybe you're thinking to yourself, never thought of it that way. Never had anybody explain it to me that way before. Yeah, well, that's not me. That's not you. If you're thinking those thoughts, then that would be Jesus Christ asking you those questions. Okay? Yeah. And I pray you do not ignore Jesus's voice. So I'll put up another video on your screen. It will be titled "Why Did God Begin Humanity?" Yeah, why did God begin humanity, right? And continue your journey learning about God's word without fear of Satan's ministers lying to you. Hope to see you over there.